Call of the Night, episode 3. So, I love how this episode kind of starts off a bit morbid with the girl just having somebody die in front of her, and she's over there just holding a lighter, which is pretty much just telling us that this is the past of the detective, I feel like. And, we get back to like where the last episode left off, and basically she showed up and she was talking to Ko and his vampire friends, and she found some glasses that were from Akon, which I didn't really put two and two together. And she basically ran up to him and replaced his glasses that he switched with with his old glasses, and he just started getting weak and wasn't really moving as much. It seemed very odd, and then she just started stabbing him repeatedly, like really trying to end him. And she basically got really violent with them and was like, "Listen, Akon, I'm not really here. I'm not. I don't really want to kill you. Just let me know who's the one that turned you." Because even the other vampire that was with them, she tried to be like, "Well, I guess you're gonna get me next too." And then she's like, "Nah, I'm not here for you." And who she was really here for was Siri, the one that or Sari, the one that turned Akon into a vampire. And she actually shows up and grabs onto him, and the then the detective tries to go at them, and the other vampire kind of steps in and is like gets gets the knife through for some reason, like it just bypassed her arm. And it was so interesting seeing that vampires have more than just the ability to fly. They also have the ability to bypass solid objects. And this is where we learned, or where yeah, well, this is where Cole learns that vampires don't necessarily keep things from their own life. So he learns that any object from their past can be used as kind of like a weakness to them. Like it does point out that there's more weaknesses than just the sun for vampires. It's also that anything from their past could also be used as a weakness. So like what's interesting is like vampires just subconsciously try to overcome that weaknesses by forgetting about it. So in essence, the vampires are reborn uh after so people that turn into vampires are reborn, and they slowly start fading away their previous memories. And that is so interesting because this just means that whatever life they've had prior to becoming a vampire necessarily ceases to exist, as they're no longer going to be able to keep remembering it. But at the same time, it does breed them in and allows them to really restart over into their vampire life. And I do like that there was like a moment where Coke was kind of like not worrying about it, like what happened with Akon and giving him blood, and then he's like, "Yeah, Nasuna's not gonna mind me saving your life. Don't worry about it." And then he goes and she's like, "No, I actually did mind quite a lot." So it is so interesting. Uh, this was quite interesting learning about more about the vampires and their powers and their weaknesses. And Ko was, after hearing all this, really just wanted to, instead of like worrying about like anybody else, he was just kind of like, "Listen, Nasuna, we should probably figure out what yours is, or or if you remember anything." As everyone was kind of like, "Well, this detective lady sure knew about Akon's past, so we can pretty much assume that she is kind of digging into everybody else's past if she hasn't already found anything from our past to use against us." And I love that this was brought up into into the end of last season, where with the guy in the ring, and that essentially is what led him to be ended. So it was really really interesting. Just see how did it brings a lot of questions, like who is this detective lady? How does she know about the vampire's weaknesses? They like I can only assume, right, based on like a few context clues we've gotten about her and other stuff, that she probably had somebody she loved turned into a vampire, and that's how she was able to find all these weaknesses. And then eventually something happened where she had to end them, and that's what she started doing. Instead of like having to suffer, having anybody else suffer the same loss she had, she decided to take them all out. Uh, but yeah, Nasuna doesn't seem to remember anything, which is just interesting because I think she's like one of the youngest there. She's like 30 or 40 something, something along those lines. And she still couldn't remember exactly what happened. So the fact that she's already forgotten definitely lets you know that vampires don't get to keep their memories for very long. And I love how, well, we have a circumstance where with Ko's figuring out, okay, well, shoot, I'm never gonna find out about her past life. We have the Seri and Akon kind of like having their own conversation, and they're kind of Akon's kind of lamenting that, hey, I'm not. Eventually, I'm gonna forget all about my first time meeting you, all about my how I fell in love with you, all the stuff that I had in my human life. I'm gonna forget about it, which is just like really time, because these are precious memories that Akon probably holds very dear and close to him. But at one point, because he got turned, he's no longer gonna remember those. And I love that Sari kind of like points out to him like, yes, you'll forget about him eventually, but I certainly won't. And even if you forget about them, I'll make sure that we make even greater memories from here on out, which I really love. Uh, how powerful that is, and how it really showed that Sari does have a certain connection with Akon, as opposed to like anybody else. And I love this transitions of like her dropping the glasses and it breaking, kind of like shattering the Akon's past life completely, and him fully embracing that he's gonna be living a new life with Sari. It's really interesting, and really, I really love how well transitions are done in Call of the Night series. It's, yeah, I think it's probably some of the best transitions right now. So, uh, Ko, we go back to Ko, and Ko is once again just trying to get info on Nasuna. He even asks her like, "Do you remember your first love?" And I think one of the interesting parts about all this is that Ko wanted to ask her this, or wanted to find out this, and we have this nice visual of him standing in like blanket space with and a pond under. So it's kind of like one of those things where it's like he was afraid of asking her this, afraid to know, but at the same time, now that it's come to this, it's one of those things that they have to really get the hand on and really put their foot forward in this, so that Nasuna doesn't become the next victim of the detective or against anybody else, because they haven't realized what her weaknesses are. So they eventually find this patient key card from a hospital, and they go there. And I just love that Nasuna's like one of those like doesn't like scary parts, or doesn't like scary movies, doesn't like scary buildings. And then even though she tried to scare off Kon so that they wouldn't be there by saying it's haunted, eventually they end up going upstairs, and they find Kabura, another vampire. And I love that Ko was Ko was like, yeah, like we found this key card, and we're just here to check out, see if we can find anything about her past. And Kabura instantly like looked at Nasuna and was like, yeah, no, you shouldn't worry about that at all. Go home. And I love that Ko was kind of like, listen, I know it seems kind of like out of place, but there's no way this keycard does not belong to her. the timing's too convenient, and the fact that there's a vampire working in this hospital is too convenient. Like, there's obviously something here for Nasuna, and we want to find out the truth behind it all. So Kabura eventually is like, okay, well, follow me, I'll show you a way. And I'm really interested because we don't have much on Asuna, and I think getting to learn a bit about her prior to meeting Ko and prior to her becoming a vampire is gonna make Ko just that much closer to her. Maybe get him closer to falling in love with her, and get Ko closer to becoming a full-fledged vampire. So yeah, great episode. 8 out of 10.